Who would have thought 10 years ago when I left the mothership that Rece Davis would stop by, and he came without any PR from ESPN? There's no security here, no nothing. You even brought a picture here.
I brought a gift.
Oh.
You see this? You recognize any of these people?
Oh, my goodness.
Look at this.
What year do you think that is? So that's the entire on-air staff at the mothership. There's Tirico in there doing SportsCenter. Robin Roberts is there.
Yep.
Gary Miller.
Steiner.
Charlie Steiner, Stuart Scott.
Rich Eisen.
That's a pretty Rich Eisen with hair.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good lineup.
Dan
there.
said that, Rich, not me.
Yeah. Linda Cohn.
Yeah.
Steve Levy, Gary Miller.
What year?
Larry
KO's
Field?
not in the picture. So what year did Keith leave? 97, maybe?
Yeah. So that probably right up. When did you get there?
95. March of 95.
Oh, okay.
Didn't start doing SportsCenter until 96.
How old were you when you got there?
I was 29 when I got there and 30 by the time I finally did a SportsCenter. I wanted to do SportsCenter before I turned 30, and I missed that goal by about a month. But I was on ESPN or ESPN2 at 29.
What do you remember about your first SportsCenter?
It was 2 a.m. SportsCenter with Brett Haber. And it was one of those deals. I think I've told this story publicly before. When I first got there, the Sports Smash and the old Sports Night show that Stuart and Susie were doing got canceled. It got canceled about a month after I arrived, and I hope that was coincidence. But so they didn't really have anything for me to do. So they were trying to decide, and I'd been instructed. I mean, I was told in explicit terms, do not ask to do SportsCenter. We're creating separate identities for ESPN and ESPN2. So now they don't know what they're going to do with me. Maybe they're just going to cut me loose. So I talked them into letting me do a SportsCenter. I got a 2 a.m. on a Saturday night with Brett Haber. And after the show, I had a message light on my phone when I went upstairs. And I assume it's my mother or my wife or something. And it's Keith. And I'd had one conversation with Keith Olbermann probably the entire 8 months I'd been there. And he said, you should be in the rotation. He said, I'll do what I can. He had no idea that they were thinking about cutting me loose. And I've been eternally grateful to him since then for that.
Do you think that you were vulnerable, that they weren't going to keep you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. If I had not done well on that show, I think there's a really good possibility of it.
Because I was working behind the scenes to get you fired.
Well, that's not surprising because, as you mentioned when we looked at this picture, there's no egos or shuffling behind the scenes going on there, right?
How competitive was it? Was I nice to you?
You actually were. Now, you were at a level, you and Keith were at a level that us new guys had to sort of prove ourselves. But after a while, yeah, you were very kind to me. You were fine.
Would you tell me if I wasn't?
I would now, probably wouldn't have then for fear that then you would have gotten me fired. But now I would tell you. I would say, Dan, you were a jerk, but you weren't. No, you were good. And so was Keith, actually. Both of you guys were great.
Do you got a great story with no names attached to it?
Great story with no names attached to it. I have to think about that for a little bit. I have to get ready. I imagine you have a few.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I put names on it.
Yeah, I'll put one name on it. I had been doing it. I was secure now, so they weren't going to fire me. You remember how Charlie, we would give injury reports? And Charlie Steiner would say, he's day-to-day, but then again, aren't we all? So one night, we were doing the 6 p.m. SportsCenter, and Charlie's back in his chair like this because I'm doing whatever. And I come to somebody who's day-to-day and just trying.
He's not on camera.
No, he's not on camera, but he's on set with me. He and I are doing the 6.
Yeah.
He's off camera, and I come to the part day-to-day, so I'm trying to do a little anchor interplay there, and I say, hey, he's day-to-day, but hey, Charlie, then again, aren't we all? I still have more to do, but the director punches up Charlie, and Charlie's, sprawled out like this, hands behind his head, and he was ripped. I mean, he was pretty pissed at me after that.
Did he? Well, it's always weird. There are certain guys you had chemistry with and other guys you didn't. I had no chemistry with Kenny Mayne or Stuart Scott, even though individually they were very talented.
Right.
I just had no chemistry whatsoever. Keith, who was a great individual talent, I had chemistry with, and it didn't make any sense to anybody else, including management, that somehow it worked. But there are guys you work with because people go, oh, you get paired with somebody and you go, this isn't going to work.
Right.
But you still have to do an hour show with them and go, hey, let's just chat it up a little bit here. Booyah!
I can remember, I guess I don't care now, I'll just attach names. When Kilborn was getting ready to go to Comedy Central or whatever, I did several shows with him that summer leading up. And he would look at me at the beginning in what we call the A's. Now we used to call the 10s, the first segment of the show.
Yeah.
He'd look at me and say, I guess I'll be with you through the 10s, kid, but then I'm out. And I mean, he was basically putting together a little resume reel, and then it was the rest of the show. He was just clicking time.
Well,
back.
yeah, he would do the first part where he had the juicy highlights. That's where Kilby wanted to kill it.
Exactly.
And then after that, he mailed it in.
Yeah, not even paying attention.
I wonder if they do, and in all seriousness, a 30 for 30 on Craig Kilborn. Because where did he go?
Fascinating. He showed up on a macaroni commercial recently.
Yes.
And I hadn't thought, he and I weren't close at all. I hadn't thought about him in quite some time, and I saw him, and I thought the same thing you did. I don't know what happened or why he made the choices he made or whatever.
But I remember when he first got there, first day Kilborn got there, we went to, what was the bar that was up across the street? Bleachers?
Yes.
Is that the name of it? Okay.
Yeah.
So we go to Bleachers, and Kilborn goes, tell me some dirt. Tell me some gossip. And then you're like, you just walked in the door, dude. And then he goes, I got 5 questions for you. And so he goes, yeah, it's my thing. I got 5 questions. And I go, oh, okay. So he would always ask these 5 questions. And then he got to Comedy Central or his show following Letterman, and he did his 5 questions there. Fascinating guy.
Yeah,
extreme.
For sure. Very talented.
He was
too.
really talented with NBA highlights and the Minnesota Vikings. Other than that, he didn't know and didn't care.
Yeah, no.
But he could deliver a line. Have you been to Bloomington before?
Just for basketball, not for football. They're going to honor Lee Corso while we're there,
great.
so we're looking forward to getting him back there. There was a possibility of getting the show there on a Saturday last year, and didn't quite work out. And so I'm really glad that we're going to go there and open up. It's going to be cool.
Give people a sense of what it's like. We see, and as I've told you before, you're like a duck on water. You look like everything's just, I'm a traffic cop here. I'm landing planes. Everything's nice. Everything's great. There's tons of noise. It's chaos. And Corso, you don't know what's going to happen. Your guest picker comes on. There's so much involved. Bear you go to for something. Herbie's here. What is it like, sort of in the moment behind the scenes there?
You have to have ultimate concentration, yet awareness to be able to react to what happens. Because if something's going on either on the set or behind you and you're oblivious to it, then the people at home are seeing it. So you've got to find a way to incorporate it smoothly into the show and make a snap judgment as to whether you want to incorporate it or not. So, there are a lot of people talking and stuff, but we don't script anything. Nothing is in teleprompter or anything like that. Now I write leads by hand, and refer to them as sort of almost as you would speak extemporaneously. But the rest of it is just conversation. And, we might have on some topics an order of who's going first, but once a conversation starts, it's just sort of a free-for-all, and you have to manage it and sort of get a feel for when you need to stop and move on or change or get somebody out of hot water.
Does anybody tell you about a certain sign behind you?
Yes. Because there's no way I can see those unless I were to pick it up on a monitor or something. So if there's a great sign behind us, our producer, Jim Galliero, or the director, Rodney Perez, or somebody will get in my ear and say, hey, there's a sign behind you that says, and then maybe I'll reference it or maybe I won't.
Did it come up in meetings about Dan Patrick Show signage?
It did, and actually so many of the people were trying to get them taken down, but I lobbied to increase the number of Dan Patrick Show signs behind me.
Really?
No, not really, not at all.
Because Chris Fowler was upset with me. He goes, will you just tell your audience stop doing that? And I go, no. It was fun because they were trying to slip in those signs. Who cares, right?
I really don't. I don't care at all. I mean, I'm a company guy, as you know. I've been there 22 years, but if your audience, if they get a sign, good for them. Good for them. We've got people patrolling the signs.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah, I don't want anybody. The only thing I don't want in the signs is anything that is, that's offensive. Yeah. That's over the top offensive. If you want to walk that line, it's okay. But over the top offensive, and maybe like there was a sexual innuendo, which I didn't realize was just that I actually referenced on a sign. And I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know the reference, and I did.
Quickly after.
Yeah. Well, no, I never knew until somebody told me later, and I was like, "Oh, There's a name for that, and I didn't realize that.
If you'd like to show up and get on camera with the DP Show sign, Rece is encouraging you to go to Bloomington, Ohio State against Indiana, Thursday, August 31st. What did you make of the poll that Saban and Harbaugh, two most overrated coaches in America?
Preposterous. For Saban, I saw the one coach anonymously who said, you go to battle and I've got a squirt gun and he's got a howitzer and you win and we say you're great. Well, guess what? When he took over that job, people were saying that they could never restore greatness in Alabama. The time had passed. Who did that?
Yeah.
He did. It's a stupid thing to say, and it's a jealous thing to say. And with Harbaugh, he took over Stanford when they were like 1-11.
Even San Diego.
Stanford. Yeah, he won at San Diego. He fixed Stanford, and he's in the process of fixing Michigan. No, by the way, he almost won the Super Bowl. It's ludicrous that anybody would say that, I think. Just jealousy.
The storyline in college football this year is what? Or who?
Probably the year of the quarterback. I think we've had quarterback play that hasn't been great. And is there a quarterback like a Deshaun Watson that can elevate his team? Is it Sam Darnold? Is it DeAndre Francois? Is Jalen Hurts improved enough to be able to give Alabama a championship? I think those are the biggest storylines. That and everybody's, even though Clemson's the reigning champion, everybody's sort of chasing Alabama, I think, because of this decade of dominance they've had. And that's why that first weekend game, I think, is so huge. It sort of establishes a little bit of a pecking order.
What do you think of jumping into the season like that? With Alabama, when you're playing Florida State, you got everybody's attention there, as opposed to easing in against Wabash.
I think it's great for the sport, but maybe not for the team. For every team, it would probably benefit all of them to play Wabash or Quinnipiac or somebody and sort of ease into it the way you would a preseason game in the NFL. For the sport and for the attention, certainly for us, it's great to have Alabama, Florida State, and UCLA, Texas A&M, and Florida, Michigan, which we'll have on our air Saturday as well. Tennessee, Georgia Tech on Labor Day night. Games like that to start the season are great for the sport, great for the product, and great for us. But an individual team would probably benefit by playing, a virtual exhibition game to start.
Sneaky teams that you like this year?
I think TCU, because they rarely have two bad years in a row. Their schedule's a little tough. I don't know if Oklahoma State qualifies as being sneaky.
Certainly sounds like there's some big expectations.
There are. It's starting to grow. They've got a terrific quarterback. They've got an explosive wide receiver who says he's not hurt, although there have been some rumors around how healthy James Washington is. He says he's fine. I think those are two for sure. And if Florida or Miami can solve their quarterback issues or answer their quarterback questions positively, both of those teams could be really good, I think.
Coaches on the hot seat?
I think the first weekend you'll see UCLA and Texas A&M, and whoever loses that game, their coaches or their fans are not going to be happy. UCLA, with the way it fell off the map last year with Jim Mora and Kevin Sumlin, Kevin's a friend of mine, and I think he's a really good coach, but probably the Johnny Manziel thing, as great as it was, has also made it tougher for him because now they've had trouble finding a quarterback to follow him, and as a result, they lose 4 or 5 games every year. So I think that game's really important, and then the athletic director, Scott Woodward, who's a terrific guy and a great administrator, but he stated the obvious. Kevin Sumlin knows he's got to win. So I think those are two to start with for sure.
You look at these teams, you've covered college football for quite some time. Assess these quarterbacks in the NFL, these rookie quarterbacks that you may have seen during the season, whether in person or you guys discussed on the show.
You mean the guys that are rookies?
Deshaun Watson, Deshaun Kaiser.
I think Watson particularly is a guy that has the it factor. People are drawn to him. I've covered Clemson. I've done their games. I've been to their practices. Players respond to him. You can't always, it's sort of like the chemistry you were talking about on the set. Sometimes you can't always evaluate exactly why it happens, but it does with Deshaun. And he's a terrific guy, terrific leader. He's genuine. I think he's a really good athlete. He's got plenty of arm. I think he's going to be a very good NFL quarterback. Is he going to be a superstar? I don't know. I mean, that's hard to tell because sometimes you think they will and they won't, but I think he'll be an excellent quarterback. Trubisky's performance has surprised me early on, at least, because I still kept saying, but they tried to let him beat out Marquise Williams for 2 years at North Carolina, and he didn't. What's up there? But he's certainly talented.
Yeah, it's strange when you're looking at these kids because I loved Mahomes, but I loved Mahomes in his college offense. I didn't know if that would transfer into the NFL, but it feels like it has. They went up to get him, having an established quarterback like Alex Smith. The time frame for him to get into the lineup is probably a year, it feels like. You know, I don't know if Watson is going to get in this year. Deshaun Kaiser may be your starting quarterback there in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Mitchell Trubisky trying to push, what's going on with Glenn in there. You didn't have a franchise quarterback, but if you have quarterbacks who look like they're on the verge of starting in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to find in college because of the nature of the offenses. And you don't have as many guys throwing with anticipation, which is something you have to do in the NFL, as you know, and then the windows are even smaller. I think that's why I like Darnold, because Darnold reminds me, not in the way he plays all the times, but in terms of throwing with anticipation, he reminds me of Andrew Luck when he was at Stanford. Not many guys do that because you don't see as many pro-style offenses. You see guys throwing to big windows and wide open spots off of read option, and that doesn't translate to the NFL as easily.
Well, that's why Mahomes. I just remember watching the game against, I think, Oklahoma State. It was crazy.
Yeah. And they had the game against Oklahoma. It was like 66-59.
Yeah, I said to the Danettes, I said, we always just tweet out the channel we're watching.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, channel 604 or something or whatever. And then these guys know, tune in, what are you watching? And I just saw him just lighting up these defenses.
He's got tremendous physical skill set.
But he's not afraid.
He's not afraid.
He has there's Favre in him,
yes,
which is good and bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that arm is strong. He's not afraid.
And he's not always going to take the check down. Right. Yeah.
Where is the place you've been that you got nervous on College Game Day?
I don't think I
Intensity,
have.
scared?
No.
Crowd?
No, not at all. I mean, now maybe that's dumb. Maybe I should, but I don't. I always feel that little surge of adrenaline when I walk up those steps, and usually Corso's already out there, and he's holding up the one helmet, and they go, yay, and he holds up the other, and they go, boo, and he does the whole thing. And there's a surge of adrenaline I get, but I haven't ever felt uneasy or nervous or anything like that.
How do you explain Corso?
He's a phenomenon.
Yeah, but
he's the most important part of the show, and it's because he genuinely cares about the show, the people he's on the set with, and the sport. And it's obvious to people who are watching at home. And I think that some of that chemistry, and one of the reasons that I feel like that I've been able to step into Chris's shoes, and hopefully it's gone well, seems to have gone well, as I try to be humble, and it's very difficult for me to be humble.
Oh, this is when I compliment you.
Yeah, I know.
Reece, you've done an incredible
great job. Exactly.
Some people say, who's the guy who used to do College Game Day?
That's what I say all the time. No. But I think the reason we've been able to do that is because of Lee. Lee's very generous, cares about the show. Everybody cares about him. You want to make sure that he's in the best possible situation, and he wants to make sure that he brings it, particularly in that pick segment, because it almost feels like a college football Saturday can't start until Lee puts on that headgear. And then it's like, okay, now we can play.
Yeah.
Hit the microphone, but now we can play.
And then you got Herbie and Desmond, who you have Ohio State and Michigan. You have the relationship there. And there's a family feel to it when you're tuning into it, which is what people want. They know who it is. They know what to expect there. Still some surprises. So it's a credit to you guys. But congrats.
Thank you.
I meant what I've said, even when I've talked about you. You haven't even been here, but you're a good guy and you've done great work.
Thank you.
And
man.
in this business, it's you usually don't get both.
I appreciate that. Real quick thing is I throw the compliment and the bouquets back to you. A lot of times, especially when you were still working with us, people would call me and they would say, young kids trying to get in the business, and they would say, what should I do? And I said, the first thing you should do is watch Dan Patrick. I said, now don't try to do good. And I'm not saying the catchphrases and things like that. I said, watch the way he does his job. I said, that's the textbook. And I still think that you're doing terrific, and you've got the best man cave I've ever seen here.
What do you think?
I think it's awesome. My man Pearl back there has been saying that he was going to bring me in and show me around. So
is that how this happened?
Yeah, that's how it worked. Actually,
McLovin, I didn't know that you set up this Rece Davis visit.
Well, we were going to go to lunch, and I said I'd show him the man cave, and it just worked out that he could come on with you as well.
That's really nice. Well, if you want to leave now and go have lunch with Rece, you can, McLovin. Go ahead.
Actually, that sounds lovely.
Yeah, we agree. Sounds great.
I'm really trying hard, but nobody's jumping on the Pearl thing.
I know. I slipped Rece $5 to call me Pearl, and it's not sticking.
It's not working.
Do they miss Fritzy?
Who?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Fritzy, I'm kidding. We love you. We miss you.
But you're not welcome back. Rece Davis, you can see him a couple times here coming up really soon. It'll be Ohio State at Indiana Thursday, August 31st. And then in Atlanta, Florida State, Alabama, September 1st. Rece, it's time to say, Rece out.
Aw.
Thanks for stopping by.
You bet, Dan.
Back
Anytime.
after this.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.